Welcome to DFS Insights, where the game behind the game comes alive. I am David Geislinger. Alongside me is David Grant Jr., my cousin and co-strategist. The teams up on the block are the Denver Nuggets at the Minnesota Timberwolves.
With your lineup success as our top priority, this is where David and I will dive deep into our top three players that we like for this specific game in this series. We're going to go ahead and break down the strategy behind our picks and share our insights that will help you put your lineups over the top and into the money. So, if you could please be kind enough to go ahead and, if you like the content, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and at the very end, we actually give away two absolutely free lineups as a way of saying thank you. And actually, whether you like or subscribe or not, we give those away anyway because we're hoping to earn your business here in the future. So, yeah, man, this series has been amazing. Looking forward to diving into this.
Yeah, no, I'm looking into it. Getting in here to Game 4. Yeah, it's been kind of. You think about it backwards. Minnesota goes into Denver,
Yeah.
wins two. Denver goes into Minnesota, wins one, and we're seeing the outcome here at Game 4. But before we go ahead and get into Game 4, let's just do a quick recap of the Game 3 DFS perspective here. So Denver did, like I mentioned, come into Minnesota. They actually smashed Minnesota 117-90. Looks like they were firing on all cylinders. So Jokic, Murray, and Gordon, top three fantasy producers there, and then Edwards, Conley, and McDaniels as Minnesota's top three. Optimal lineup for Game 3. Jokic, Murray. Murray stepped up quite a bit, even though every time he touched the ball, he was booed. It was kind of funny to see there. Aaron Gordon at the pro. KCP had his best game, so he ended up in the utility spot, and Jaden McDaniels as well in the utility. So now so getting into the projected ownership here into Game 4, I do use my own formulas and stuff to come to what these projections are. So Jokic is sitting pretty high there. So if you do go him MVP, he'd be pretty chalky up there, about 66%. Edwards is about 25. So good play maybe to switch Jokic up into the star for that ownership. But with that being said, use these as a general reference here. So now let's go ahead and get into Game 4. Just general stats here. Minnesota's coming in at Vegas has them favored at 3. So with Vegas's track record and the West Coast teams, it seems Minnesota is probably going to lose this game. Yeah, they just seem to be pretty off. All the teams favored have basically lost. So over-under is about 204.5. Minnesota's offensive rating actually went quite a bit down from last game, so that a 109.8. Defensive rating went significantly down. Now they're at a 107.2. Pace, 91.83. Obviously, that's inversed for the Nuggets, since that's this is only referencing this series. Injuries, same injuries as Game 3. Jamal Murray, Reggie Jackson, KCP, all game time decisions, all questionable. And they all basically had the best games of the series last game that they were injured. So I'm starting to think, game time decision, they just need to put, GTG, good to go. Because that's just what it seems like. It's kind of weird. The only one that's been iffy is Jared Allen from, that series. But, yeah, these game time decisions, they're playing. Like I mentioned, Jamal Murray had his best game last series. KCP had his best game last series. Reggie Jackson actually had his second best game of the series. So just keep that in mind. I think they're all going to play. So with that, you got anything to add before we get into our key players here?
Nope. Agree with everything there, and let's go ahead and dive into this awesome Game 4.
Yeah, all right.
right? Game 4.
Who you
No.
got? Starting off. Well, actually, I lied. Before we start off, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. We did spend quite a bit of time doing some research and to come up with these key plays that we think are going to help you push you over that edge. So before we get into it, please like, subscribe, notification bell. It is all free. So just 2 seconds. Bow.
Yeah.
All right, now enough of
Definitely.
the little. Was it the little jingle in between there? So go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. So, no surprise here. I'm going to go ahead and go to Nikola Jokic here at 17.5, the reigning MVP. He's also got MVP 3 out of the last 4 seasons. Um, and I wasn't shocked to see him, that got announced that day on the last game, May 10th, when they faced each other. And I wasn't shocked to see him come out and just have, one of the best games he's had here in a while to prove, hey, man, I'm the defending champ. I'm the reigning MVP. And he put on one of the best games, that he's had in quite some time and definitely in the series. Um, he is back up to 17.5. That's totally fine with me. This team clearly runs through him. Um, his usage is at 30%. His fantasy points per minute here is averaging 1.5 fantasy points per minute. Again, this is over the last 5 games. He's averaging 60 fantasy points per game over the last 5 games. He is projected here at 55 fantasy points. I could definitely see him exceeding that. Um, I do see this, this is a pivotal game here in the series, so I think that Minnesota is going to bring it to him, which should be a good thing because that means the starters are going to be on the floor longer, and my roster construction has to do with it being a close game. So, I know, it was a blowout last game. It was a blowout in game number 2. Um, game 1 was back and forth, but Denver still lost. So, Nikola Jokic, MVP. He's got to come in here. He's got to come in here and take this game. So I'll be starting my lineups with him. I'll primarily have him here at MVP. I will because I've seen multiple times him also be optimal at the star, regardless of how much his salary is. So the only person I would put at MVP ahead of him is Anthony Edwards. He's the only person capable to me of scoring enough points to outscore Joker. So it would be between those two who I'll be alternating between. But Jokic will be my primary go-to. I'm sure he'll be 60 to 70% owned at MVP. So obviously the ownership play here is going to be putting him at star. So I will definitely be putting him at star as well. But there's just no way to not go Jokic. I mean, unless you think he's going to have a terrible game and only have 46 fantasy points like he did in game 1, which in that case you could actually completely fade him and go that route. But I don't see that happening from here on out. They're still down 2-1. So that's my number 1 play, my favorite play. What are your thoughts on that? And who do you got here for your first play up on the block?
Yeah, no, Jokic obviously. It's hard to say he's not probably going to be one of the highest, raw fantasy, producers on the slate. I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, he is MVP for a reason. Like you said, 3 MVPs and a Taco Bell commercial during his draft. But no, yeah, I like him. My only issue is it's tough at the 17.5, and like I mentioned, he's averaging about 63% up there in the MVP slot. So at 7,800 entries, 63%, you're looking at 4,900 of those entries roughly having Jokic at it. So if you have him at the MVP, 4,900, 4,900 other people are scoring the same amount of points you are. So you got to definitely look elsewhere for that value. So, um, and like I
100%.
said,
Yeah.
playing him, you kind of got to just keep in your mind you're probably playing a person 8K or below, and I don't know how much looking at the people down there. I have maybe one, potentially two people that I like at least from the previous matchups down there. So it's tough. I mean, obviously, I'm going to probably play him or Edwards at the MVP. It's just really hard to see one of those two not being, Jamal Murray possibly has even a better game than last one, but no, Jokic for sure, and it's hard to argue against. I
Hard.
mean, just game log trolling, you can
Yeah.
clearly see that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he's the reigning MVP for a reason, for sure. So, cool. So then, who do you got here for your first pick?
My first pick, I'm actually gonna go with Michael Porter Jr. So yeah, I like him. I'm using him primarily to kind of help. Well, I'm primarily going to be probably putting him at the star and the pro position. He did drop down 500. He's at 11.5. So that actually helped out his points per salary. So he's sitting at now about a 2.5 roughly points per salary using his average fantasy points, which is 29 fantasy points he's averaged there. He's getting the minutes. His usage is up since he's slowly creeping up. From game 1 to 2 now to 3. So 20.7. He's projected 30, which even increases. If you think he's going to get 30, obviously the higher fantasy points, the more points per salary he is. So I think he has the potential. His range of outcome is very, I like it, and I think a lot of people might be, seeing him not producing, what I guess he did against the Lakers. So hopefully it might be drawn off. I have noticed kind of his ownership has slowly gone down. Game 1, he was at overall ownership 47%, then 43%, then 31%. Um, so yeah, his ownership is definitely going down. So I like that to put me different from other people. So potentially if he does have that good game, I'll be sitting good. So he is averaging 17 points a game, 5 rebounds, about 1.5 assists, about 1.7 steals, and about a block a game. So it's hard not to go him. You'll see him where I have him in my lineup. I'm going to get the most, bang for my buck. He's coming in about 7% the star, 24% pro, about 9% utility. So definitely going to be probably even putting him up in the star position to get that value. So with that, what do you think of that? And yeah.
Before we get to your next play, I find it absolutely comical and shocking that I go Michael Porter Jr. I think like every podcast, and you and I didn't talk about this beforehand or anything. And the one pod that I'm like off of Michael Porter Jr., suddenly now you're on him.
Hey man, I'm
That's
just
just
following the
funny,
numbers,
you know.
man. Just following the numbers.
Yep. Hey man, I hear you. So maybe that just has to give me a wake up call to put him in a couple more lineups than I was definitely going to be low on him, and now I might have to put him in an extra one or two since you're finally, you've been on the train but not, making the graphic and one of your top 3 selections.
Yeah, well,
So,
this was one of my
uh
hardest ones
good
to
enough.
choose because it was really kind of came between him and Gordon. I like Gordon too because he is 1,000
Yeah.
cheaper. Don't want to take up too much time here, but I like
Yeah.
Porter. Michael Porter has a wider range of outcomes, so I'm really hoping he hits like his top potential. Because Aaron Gordon's typically
Sure.
sitting at that mid to high 20s. Like that's where he's at. That's and that's great for his salary range and everything. but Michael Porter has a range of, you know, low 30s, basically, mid 20s to high 40 or mid 40s. So I'm
It's
really kind of
like,
hoping
yeah,
for, one of those 40-point games. So, and obviously with that, if he happens to have one of those games, you know, then I obviously would be benefiting that, and a lot of people might not because they might be off him. Like you said, you were
yeah,
off him this game,
yeah,
so
yeah.
uh,
Even I'm
yeah.
lower.
So
Yeah.
hopefully, that's gives me the up because I have to find the difference if I want Jokic in that lineup. At MVP, I need to separate myself from those 4,800 other people. So that's why I chose him. Getting into my second
Nice.
play here, unless you had something else to add.
Nope, nope. We're good.
Second
We're
play,
good.
I am actually going to switch over to Minnesota. I'm going to get on the
Okay.
Mike Conley train here. He seems to be doing,
Nice.
fairly well this series. So, old vet guy coming in. I do like him in both the pro and the utility. He is at 10K. He actually had a really good game. Not a decent game last game, and he actually still came down 500. He's getting the minutes 30.9, usage 15.7. He's averaging 28, point 0.2 fantasy points there. That puts him at, basically a 2.8 points per salary, which, is great, especially for his salary. His so far, at least from his range of outcomes from this series, isn't all that great. It's basically from 32 to 26. Excuse me, yeah, about 32 to 26. So I'm hoping he hits his higher. He's projected 26, 25.7, but I'm hoping he gets that higher 30s. I'll be using him primarily in probably the pro position to get the most bang for my buck. He's coming in about averaging 10% in the pro and about 19% in the utility. So I will have him in obviously both spots, but I'll be trying to maximize him in the pro. But keeping in mind based on who's in my lineup, I got to still take into consideration I do need fantasy points, not just to be different, because I still need to
Yeah.
score.
Yeah.
You still need to get high fantasy points. So I think he has the potential, to be, up in the pro, but it'll just be depending on the other players in the lineup that I'm creating at that time. So yeah, I do like him.
Okay.
He's not doesn't his stats don't stick out. Only about 9 points a game, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, 1.3 steals, 2 turnovers. So I think he'll hit that 30 point coming in. He needs to. It's a home game. So yeah, what do you think
Yep.
of Mr. Conley
Yeah.
before you hit your second one?
Last one. Yeah, no, yeah, Mike Conley is actually my second pick as
Awesome.
well. Yeah, yeah, this is I like his attitude. I've been watching each game. They even like kind of mic'd him up. Regardless of all that, if I go back and kind of game log troll from regular season all the way through the playoffs, with what he was projected at fantasy point wise and then what he hit, he exceeded that every single game except last game where he tied it, where projected at 26 fantasy points, depending on what site you look at, and then he hit 26 fantasy points. But other than that, he's exceeded that every single time. Um, and and he's a vet. He's who they need out there. This is a huge pivotal game. They're up 2 games to 1. The last thing you want to do is go down 3-1, especially to the defending champs. So I see, at home, they're going to give it everything they got. Mike Conley should see even a couple extra minutes. Their top players should see a couple extra minutes depending on the game plan. So Mike Conley's been just uber consistent with what he's been delivering. And at the 10,000 price point, I can't ignore that. On top of what his upside is, where he still can get you the upper 30s, that upper 30s, and on a crazy great day, even low mid 40s. So, um, yeah, love Mike Conley. He's amazing. And then that ties in with my final play. Um, I mean, it's not like my final play is anything crazy, but it's the all-star number one guy on the other team, which is or same team, but Anthony Edwards. I say the other team because I picked Nikola Jokic from the Denver. So this is it, dude. This game's huge. This is the pivotal game. So Anthony Edwards must show up. These last two games, he has not shown up. So, only hitting 32 fantasy points last game and 42 the game before that. That's not going to cut it in a win. If they think that they're going to have a shot to go, to the third round, let alone the finals. Um, yes, he was hot. He was on a tear. Game one, 64 fantasy points. The last two games from Phoenix, he hit 67 and 55. So yeah, he was riding that hot streak, but it's starting to come, it started to come down. So he's really got to step up. And Anthony Edwards and Mike Conley correlate really well together. And so putting them in the same lineup to me would be success if you think Minnesota is going to actually take this game or it's at least going to be a close game. Um, you will notice that when we give away our free lineups here at the end. You'll see the type of lineup I put together for you guys. Um, but, I know I'm kind of mixing both of my final picks here, but it's because they correlate really well together. And yeah, love Mike Conley. And then again, as my last play is going to be Anthony Edwards. He's clearly the best player on the team. Dude's only 22 years old. People are comparing him to Michael Jordan, this, that, the other. It's not even about that. It's about, him, his team, how they've been constructed. And, they got to go out there on their home floor and take this game and be up 3-1. Because if they don't, and Denver ties this at 2-2, you mark my words, Denver's going to take the series. If the Timberwolves are able to go up 3-1, Timberwolves, we'll see them here in the third round. So this is it, man. This is like a game seven. This is huge, and Anthony Edwards has to step up the same way Nikola Jokic does. So those are my three plays. Who do you got here for your final play, or what are your thoughts on my Anthony Edwards final pick, and then who do you got here for your final
Yeah,
play?
I mean Edwards, I like him obviously on the other side of the ball. At 15.5, so yeah, he's with his average fantasy points of about 46, 45.8. He's hitting about a 2.9 points per salary. So I think in order for him, he needs to exceed his value, probably up into that 50, about that 50 range or so, low 50s in order
Oh
in order
yeah,
to meet the value that
100%.
Jokic, even with Jokic being at 17.5. So he is decently owned in the MVP, 30 about averaging throughout the series about 28% MVP, 30% star. So he is quite a bit owned, obviously less owned in the MVP than Jokic, but he does have the potential to be MVP. He did it in the first game, but he did have a 64 fantasy point night there. So
Uh,
I think he's going to need to put on another performance like that if he's going to be up in the MVP. The only issue is like having him and Jokic in. I mean, I have that just makes lineup construction very difficult, and not to mention having both of them in, you're probably gonna be with majority of the field. I mean, you won't. You go from 4,800 to like 4,200. So, you
yeah.
have to get super creative, and I just don't see. I mean, obviously, there's always a chance that it would become, but it'll be super chalky at the tie. It'd just be that taking those two, it just kind of only leads you down so many different options that you can pick. And people that do max entry, 150 entry, 100 entries are probably going to have every single one of those combinations with these two in the MVP and the star. So yeah, I'd be kind of curious to see how my lineups build when I put Jokic and Edwards together. So, but yeah, I like Edwards. Yeah, maybe even hoping to fade Jokic and go in like an Edwards lineup. That would help out. So
That'd be, yeah, yeah, for sure. And I mean, in game one, it was 106 to 99, which, that you could argue that's a close game. If you're under 10 points, I mean,
it
we both
it
watched
was
that
it was a
game.
close game. I mean,
Uh,
that last one was
at
just
the
shooting
end,
to try to
yeah.
tie to get ahead, and then fouling, and then they go shoot free throws, and
Uh,
so it was a close game, game one. So
uh, and then game two, 106 to 80. I mean, that's 26 points. That's not good. And then last game, just the opposite, where Minnesota scores 90 and Denver has 117. So it's been such a big gap. It's pretty hard to determine, you know what I'm saying, what teams are gonna show up
yeah.
here. But I'm counting on it being a close game. To me, this is almost for all the
So
marbles for both teams.
all right.
So
Well, let's see if I can help with my last pick here. My last pick, you're probably gonna be
yeah.
confused on. I'm gonna go with Alexander Walker here.
Um,
I'm using him primarily
um,
for his value. And you're gonna go what? So yeah, he's 8K player. I like him pro utility. I'll be probably using him primarily in the utility case. He does get about 26.1 minutes. His usage is pretty decent when he's on the floor, 15.7. However, he just hasn't been doing great this series. It's been low lows and a decent game. He's averaging only 13.2. He's projected about 15 points here. With his average, fantasy points, he's only coming in at about a 1.65 points per salary. However, I mean, looking at what he averaged, last series, 26 fantasy points was his average last series. Game 1, 2 points. Game 3, 31 points. Game 2, 31 points. Game 3, 7 points. So I'm hoping, obviously, that range of outcome is crazy, and obviously this could bite me in badly, but it also could benefit me because looking at it, his overall ownership in game 1, 40%. He hits 2 points. His overall ownership goes from 40 to 17%. He hits a 31, then it jumps back up to 20%. He just hit a 7, so I'm banking on his overall ownership is probably going to be around 15% coming into this matchup. So I'm going to use that leverage into my lineup and just obviously hope that he hits one of his at least decent scoring, even his average from last game at 26 fantasy point night, because at 15% ownership, probably be about 14% in the utility. That gives me enough leverage in the field to have him at that 8K slot and feel comfortable having him there. So, I mean, he's this series, like I said, not too great. 8.3 real life points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block, 2 turnovers. So, yeah, I'm just hoping for one of his higher potential games, and I think that could be a real boost to any lineup that you'll have him in, since like you said, he'll only be 15%, roughly 15% owned, which basically out of 7,800 people, that puts it only 1,100 people will have him potentially. So every time he scores points, only 1,100, a seventh of the people are getting points. So that separates you from the field. That's what I'm going for. I like to hit first by myself, and he
yeah,
has
for
he
sure.
has the potential to still be high scoring person. Obviously, if he gets me 10 points, that's a bust. But I'm hoping for 25 to 30 points from him. So, what do you think of that before we get into our lineups here?
Yeah, my only concern is, last game he hit 7 fantasy points. He was projected for around 17. Um, the one game he did do amazing. It's because, Rudy Gobert was out that game. And then the game before that, he only had 2 fantasy points in 23 minutes. That is pretty rough. Um, and then even if I go back through the rest of this season, which, take with a grain of salt with that, at least, you could count two of them, but before the trade deadline, they were different teams. But, he didn't exceed he hit 10 fantasy points projected for 18, hit 9 fantasy points on March 29th, projected for 15. There's just a lot of hope involved at 8K, where, again, I know it's slim pickings down there. Will I have exposure to him? Of course I will, because he is so volatile like that he could have another one of these games. So
And
I'll definitely have exposure to
I mean,
him.
that's all you can do. I
I'll
mean,
be, you know,
yeah, I wish I had a crystal ball to see the future. So I'm obviously hoping he has one of those games. But like I
yeah,
said, I'm basically using the potential for his higher upside game, right?
right.
And the ownership being very low because he's been so terrible.
Oh,
So
100%.
because like
Yeah,
what
yeah.
you
His owner,
obviously what
yeah.
you're seeing is what everybody else sees too. I'm just hoping to play on that to get that leverage point.
Uh,
So obviously it's a risk,
yeah.
but that's what I'm saying. That's what it's gonna.
But no, great leverage play for sure, like you're mentioning, for sure.
All
Love
right.
it. Love the leverage. Yep.
All right. Well, with that, yeah. So there's 5 key players we overlapped on Mr. Conley. So with that, please again, before we get those lineups, like, subscribe, notification bell. Please drop, any questions down in the comments. We like to, start getting more engaged. We do. David put in the last, hey, throw down a person that you guys want some extra information on. Where we check it, the comment sections regularly, and we'd be more than happy to give as much information to people that we didn't mention that you might think is your key player. And then we give all the information that we have as we do research, and we just didn't want to make a 7-hour video to talk about every single person. So
Exactly.
with that, if you're just joining us, welcome to DFS Insights. You're joining us to look over our lineups. Please feel free to go back to the previous section and look over the key players so you fully understand why we did our lineups. It'll actually maybe potentially help you create more than just getting these free lineups. You can use the key players to take our lineups and then maybe alter them and get a few extra potential winning lineups. So with that, here's our lineups. Okay, well, 2 different approaches here. So all right,
Okay.
nice. Some salary left on the table, some not. Yeah, nice. All right. Well, with that, yeah, appreciate everybody. That watches watching. We plan on covering as much as this NBA playoffs as we can. I think this is Game 4. I believe the next video probably be coming out. The next day. Be covering Game 4 of the OKC Dallas game. So that game's starting to get that series starting to flip on its head over there. So we'll see how this one turns out. And with that, yeah, again, like, subscribe, do all those fun things. And David, take us away.
Yeah. Lots of people have been, finding me on Instagram and DMing me questions and stuff. And as much as I appreciate that, I'd love for you guys to just leave comments on the videos. That way you could just join the community and not only have like my self-help answer, but have David answer, and then other people in the community also. We're trying to get a group discussion going here so that we can all help each other and see different people's insights, to help us achieve the best lineup. So that's the best way to go about that. Man, these playoffs have been amazing. Players are getting hurt left and right, and then all of a sudden they're just back on the floor playing. So never seen anything quite like this. So make sure you're, you know, paying attention to that news. And yeah, man, enjoy watching all these playoffs and look forward to seeing you guys up here at the top of the leaderboard. And we will see you guys on the next one.